Good morning, internets, and welcome back to another logical fallacy reading with Alan Muliger and Bryce Barnett. You guys are probably wondering, what, you have a face cam now? Yes, this is Alan and Bryce from the future. We actually didn't record this one accidentally, so we need to go back, record this one, and then you'll be back to your regularly scheduled program of bad audio until we eventually figure out we need to be on video. That'll be in a few fallacies from now. But yes, we are on number 11, Appeal to Pity. So, Alan, go ahead and take it away.
The appeal to pity, also Argumentum ad Miserecordiam. The fallacy of urging an audience to root for the underdog, regardless of the issue at hand. A classic example is those poor, cute little squeaky mice are being gobbled up by mean, nasty cats 10 times their size. A contemporary example might be America's uncritical popular support for the Arab Spring movement in 2010 to 2012, in which the people, quote, the underdogs, were seen to be heroically overthrowing cruel dictatorships, a movement that has resulted in retrospect in chaos, impoverishment, anarchy, mass suffering, civil war, the regional collapse of civilization, and rise of extremism, and the largest refugee crisis since World War II. A corrupt argument from pathos. See also playing to emotions. The opposite of the appeal to pity is the appeal to rigor. An argument often based on machismo or on manipulating an audience's fear based on mercilessness. Example, I'm a real man, not like those bleeding hearts, and I'll be tough on fill in the name of the enemy or boogeyman of the hour. In academia, this latter fallacy applies to politically motivated or elitist calls for academic rigor and rage against university developmental / remedial classes, open admissions, dumbing down, and grade inflation. Lots of stuff here.
Yeah. So I do have a little bit of this recording. What happened was we did half of this one, we talked about half of it, and then Alan and I got lost in a 2-hour conversation detour to something totally different, and I do have that recorded. So we're gonna cover this one. So for the audience, I know this is a long one. So we're gonna cover this what we think now, and then if you guys want to stick around afterwards, you can listen to our extraordinary breakthrough of falsifiability that took like 2 hours. I edited it to have it only be 1 hour, but it's still really long. But anyways, yeah, I want to because it's been at least a few weeks, maybe even like a month or so since Alan and I have been back on this at present time recording. So I want to re-invite Alan to a vulnerable state to be as authentic as possible. I've been editing a lot of our old fallacies I've already recorded, and one of the ones that I just went through was Alan describing that this is his workroom where he needs to be in a peak state, and that he has been training himself to allow himself to switch between states in this room. Yeah. And so yeah, I just want to remind Alan of that.
Yeah, that was super good. I appreciate the reminder.
My pleasure. All right, so yeah, what are our thoughts on appeal to pity?
Yeah, it's interesting. I like how it's painting it being most often used as like in an underdog scenario, where it's like if there is someone who is not as powerful, then therefore just for the sake of it, give those who are less powerful the most of the benefit of the doubt, but give them like the endorsement. To me, I think of that as like if like for some reason in Star Wars, if the rebels were actually the bad guys and the Empire was actually the good guys, to root for the rebels just because they're rebellious and they have less resources. So yeah, that I think this one, I definitely can see myself. I think for me, where this plays in my own life, appeal to pity is like if I ever fall into um, a bias against people who are wealthy or a bias against people who have money and power. There are plenty of people who have money and power who are deeply kind and generous and loving and diligent to help humanity, as there are also people who have money who are, they use it for not awesome things. And so it's like, but for me, like I've noticed that when I tend to label all people with wealth of any kind as evil, then like anything that is a underdog force that like wants to quote unquote take them down, I'm like, yeah, you're right because you want to take them down. And it's like a whole thing that I've definitely gotten behind. I've noticed myself wanting to get behind and have gotten behind in the past. So that's super interesting.
Very good. And I think I remember what I originally said about this one. Alan and I made a short film a while back. It's on the PTN Studios channel right now, and it's called Natural Kid. And the premise was, um, what would happen if essentially appeal to pity was taken to a degree where it was absolutely unwarranted. Um, the story is about a wild child who gets reintroduced in society. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful story that the kid could elevate within society? He become the mayor and then the president, and he would essentially eventually become dictator of the world. But he's completely incapable of doing anything. Um, and I just thought that was so funny. So yeah, Alan and I are in that short film we made like, oh my gosh, like 12 years ago, something like that.
Well, more than that, dude. More
Must be
than
more than that.
because I'm 30, so that would have been no, I think oh no, I would have made that when we were like I was like 16, so I think it's more like 14 years ago.
Wow,
Oh my!
definitely.
I played the mad German scientist. It was so funny.
Yes, it was
Oh,
so great. All
so
right, and then yeah, and then appeal to rigor is the opposite. I do have this one recorded. So this will be in this same episode. There's just going to be a long uh, detour of Alan and I talking about falsifiability. I'm not sure how exactly we got into that conversation. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, then it eventually comes back to appeal to rigor. So we do comment on appeal to rigor, but um, Alan, if you want to just say your like fresh thoughts now, because it's been a really long time since we actually read this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Pilcher rigor. Yeah, so this one, let me reread it really fast for myself because I want to make sure I'm understanding it because we've actually discussed some fallacies since then that are similar. So I want to make sure I'm capturing what makes this one different. Um,
And sometimes they're not different because a lot of these are kind of like um, oh my gosh, more specific fallacies of another one.
yeah,
So yeah.
got it. Okay, so just because someone is being merciless in their approach, they're then yeah, this is what's interesting. I'm thinking of Thanos right now. That if anybody were to root for Thanos, and it was funny, some buddies of mine, we were getting into a discussion about Infinity War in particular, and we were like, it's interesting. Infinity War is actually an insanely heroic story of a man bringing his insane mission all the way to completion. And if you take away, if you were just to simply change one quality of Thanos, which is his disregard for human life, if you were to take that one quality away from him, he would be like the most dope superhero of all time. It just so happens that he doesn't care for human life. And so it's like,
Alan, I would actually push back on this. I think he does. He every single time that he has to like kill someone, he kind of tells his brain like, no, like I know this is bad, but like this has to be done for the greater good. He never enjoys it. He calls it sacrifice. Uh, and I think the fallacy that he commits is the either or fallacy,
Yeah.
where either uh, half of people have to die or everyone's going to starve to death. And the third option is you just use the gauntlet to double the fucking food. That's all you had to do the whole time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, but I think the appeal to rigor in this case would be like if someone were like, oh my god, Thanos is the best. Why? Because he's fucking ruthless. That's why. Like, oh my, I feel like that that happens in like I feel like that happens in like WWE or in like boxing or something like that. It's like if you think about it, right? It's people beating the shit out of each other until they're bleeding. And it's like, oh, he's the best. I look up to him. Why? Because he kicks ass. It's like, what? So and by the way, not to say that MMA isn't admirable. It's incredibly admirable to develop a level of discipline and skill in something that you become the best in the world at it, and that requires something all in of itself. This is me more speaking to if someone were to like if they were to love a fighter just because they can make people bleed. It's like that guy has great morals in life. It's like, what? Wait, what do you mean? So yeah, that's I don't think I've ever I don't I honestly I've always had I've always had a sensitive relationship with power. And so I don't know if I've ever really uh been prone to appeal to rigor. But I've definitely been prone to appeal to pity.
For sure. For sure. All right. So that's our re-recorded thoughts, because we actually did record this one. And now, if you'll stick with us, enjoy the hour-long discussion of something completely different, and then we come back to appeal to rigor at the end. So enjoy that.
So one of the big reasons that I love to study science, and right now I really want to get really, really good at logic. I think that's a big thing that society is missing right now. But like, for me, only factual information has practical application. If I'm going to live my life a certain way, and for lack of a better word, preach what ought to be done, I better be sure, as much as I possibly can be, that what I'm saying is accurate. Because that information will determine what I'm saying, and what I'm saying influences other people. So I have the responsibility to do my due diligence to know what I'm talking about. And that doesn't mean some people say that I'm arrogant for that, and I'm like, dude, I'm willing to change my mind under any circumstance you provide me significant evidence to the contrary, and I will thank you for proving me wrong. I think that's the opposite of what an arrogant person does. So, like, no, the reason that I am convinced that there's no reason to believe that a God exists is because I have absolutely no evidence. And every single time I look for it, because I love the idea of being able to live forever in a theme park in the skies with your family and friends. That seems cool. I would love that idea. It just is so nonsensical, and it makes more sense that we invented that because we've done it over and over and over again with multiple religions. And a lot of people are afraid of death, and instead of taking advantage of the one life they have, they like to invent an idea that, oh, well, life carries on, so I don't have to try very hard in this one. And the reason that that's so important is because that little comfortable feeling that you get of, hey, well, my life's still going to carry on. It's okay if I don't try that hard in this life, is when you die, you wouldn't have had the ability, once you won't realize because you're dead, But if you had the chance to realize, oh, there is nothing after this, I am just dead, I should have done something with my life. That is a big waste of fucking time that you could have done. And again, I would love to be convinced of the contrary, but I'm sure after studying these fallacies just thus far, you know that is not a reason to believe that it's true just because it's a nice idea. It's fallacious. Yeah, I
put it this way: I'm firm. This, and this is good for you to like hear. I think is like I'm firm enough in my own belief systems, but I'm also firm enough in my own independent journey of exploration that your opinions or your positions are not going to cause me to be insecure about them.
And I think a lot of people, the issue is that it's not that you're wrong or what have you. I think what's actually accurate is that you present evidence and you often present perspectives that lead people to be challenged to realize, oh shit, I could be wrong. And I think that a lot of people in their own exploration of life, they don't yet have a relationship with their own self and their own exploration such that they can still remain confident and secure within themselves when you start to like genuinely challenge their position.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of people that are not ready for that. I think most people are not. And
Ready? Are not ready for what?
To be challenged on their most fundamental beliefs. A lot of people don't like that. So because if somebody feels like you're attacking their beliefs, the same part in your brain goes off that feels like you are physically attacking them. And so people get extremely defensive. They place you in their out-group bias, and they will only listen to their in-group bias. And so what needs to happen is they need to, if the conclusion is true, they should be able to come to that conclusion if they feel it is safe for them to do so. And I think that's why learning science and logic is a big stepping stone in that, because whatever conclusion you come to with learning that, you will feel safe to do so. So that's a big reason why I'm doing this. I get messages from a lot of other believers like all the time, trying to like convince me, because they'll see my posts and like, hey, I saw your post, I just want to help you out. I'm like, okay, give me the evidence, let's go. And it's just like it's not going anywhere. I'm like, you were using this fallacy, this is a fallacy you're using, this is a false claim, we know it's false. And I'm just like, do you have like anything that's real evidence? Because this feels like confirmation bias to me. I'm fucking sick of it. And my big now my big pet peeve that saves me a bunch of time is asking them, look, are you open-minded to the contrary of what you believe? It's a simple yes or no. And a lot of them have a hard time answering that because they're afraid of the answer and they know it's no. But some of them are honest and they'll just say no. And I'm like, okay, so you're not open to the idea of God not being true. And they're like, correct. I'm like, okay, so I am open to the idea of God being true or not. I will follow wherever the evidence takes me. But the definition of delusional is one who will not change their mind when presented with incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. Is the definition of delusional. So no matter what I tell you, let's say if we were to continue this conversation, person, whatever we were to have, whatever incontrovertible evidence I would give to you, you have now proclaimed you will not change your mind. And that is the definition of delusional. So I think I'm done here. Until you are open-minded, I'm not going to waste my time. And I understand that is it's a, most of the time I don't directly call them delusional. It's normally after they say no, and they're like, well, why do I have to be open-minded? I'm like, okay, well, this is why, because it's the definition of delusional.
It's like also because we're in a conversation. You and I are in a conversation about our belief system. You are approaching this, inviting me into my belief systems being challenged. So you better be, in order for this to be a reciprocal conversation, you must
It's
be
fucking
open to the
hypocritical.
possibility.
Yeah, there's being a fucking hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, duh. Yeah.
No, and what sucks is that it's super self-righteous. It's like, hey, Bright, can I bestow myself upon you because you need help? And it's like, excuse me? What do you think this is? What do you I didn't ask for your help. You're the one reaching out to me. Are you just reaching out because you want to feel good about yourself? Like, check yourself at the door, family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to have that conversation if they're open-minded. There are very, very few people that I've talked to that that will say yes to that they are open-minded to the possibility of God not existing. I'm gonna say it's I think there's only 2 people that I've ever met that told me yeah, they're open-minded to that. Who are religious. I never asked you that question. I do feel it's a little of an invasive question, so I won't ask it. You don't have to answer if you want to. But
you can ask me the question and I will respond to you honestly.
okay. Yeah. Let me be as accurate as possible with the question. Yeah, Alan, of any position, are you open-minded to the contrary of what you believe if there's significant evidence to show you that is the case? Sufficient evidence.
Always.
Always. Good. That's the scientific method. For sure. Would you rather know an unfortunate truth rather than a comforting lie?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Then great. Alan, you're number 3. You're the third person that religious person we've ever met. Now, that being said, I knew you were I know you were an atheist for a long time. You were. You're not current.
Yeah.
And one of the other 2 people was also atheist for a long time. So it's like that I know that you and this other person were already open to the world of that not being a part of their life, and then it was introduced into their lives. But for a lot of believers, they've literally never known or even entertained the idea otherwise. So
Yeah.
I know, like, it would be a grieving process for you, but like my heart for the people that can't even imagine otherwise, and when they realize that if they go through this process, they normally I've seen a lot of stories where they realize there is no reason to believe that God exists, and not having a reason to believe something is a reason to not believe it. That rocks them. That shakes them up big time, to put it lightly.
Well, it's insecure. It's like, I think it's 2 things. One, I think it's really strong insecurity. In, again, like what I said earlier, in their belief systems, but also just in themselves. So 2 things. Have you ever heard the argument of that we are God? Have you ever heard that argument before?
It's equivocation. Like, if you're just defining God to mean people, okay, sure, whatever, fine. I've seen people define God to mean water. Okay, go ahead.
So what I mean when I say that is all of the things that we chalk up to God is actually just us. Is what I mean when I say that. As in, like, example, someone says, God healed me. No, actually, through placebo, you healed yourself, but you're not giving yourself credit for what you did because you're not aware of how strong placebo is within you.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
Have you ever heard that argument before?
Not the way that you put it like that. No, but like, it is a fallacy to say that if this is the case for some things, it must also be the case for everything else too. And that is where I'll disagree because the claim is that God created the universe and we weren't around when the universe was made. Therefore, that notion is already falsified. But yeah, for the healing thing, yeah, sure, I'll give you that one for sure.
So, and I'm not saying, and by the way, I'm not saying that's what I believe to be true. It was just a simple question of have you heard that before?
Okay.
That perspective, because it's like, because what the argument revolves around this idea, and I find it to be a slippery slope because it teeters on arrogance, and it kind of, yeah, it teeters in not good territory. But essentially the argument is that it's that, hey, you are way more powerful, you are capable of so much more than you are giving yourself credit for as a human being. And the things that you are chalking up to God are actually you just don't realize it's you because you haven't honored and acknowledged your creative ability. It's like it's essentially that perspective. The other one that I wanted to share with you, because it was revealed to me, but I've never looked at life the same ever since. You said something earlier, and you said that it was a beautiful, beautiful expression. You were sharing essentially your reasoning for why you're so passionate about advocating for heaven and God not existing. In part, if I heard you correctly, was that when people believe in a life after this one, they choose to waste this one.
Yes.
And so for you, it's like it's a part.
Some people do that. Some people.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of
Yeah.
people. I've asked my mom this question that, and for once she answered honestly because we were trapped in a car together. But it was, if you were to discover that God, Jesus, the Bible, all of that was essentially fiction, would you be proud of yourself for the life that you lived? Or would you wish you had lived it differently? She thought about it, and then she said, I would have felt like if all that wasn't true, I would have felt like I wasted my whole life. And she's still alive.
Wow.
And
that's a powerful fucking moment right there, dude. Nice work.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Well, I didn't want to challenge her beyond that because it clearly is important to her. But also, like, that's how a lot of believers are. Like,
they use it as an excuse to remain calm and to remain like I'm with you 100% on that.
Yeah. So, I just would feel bad for the people that think that they're wasting their lives, but there are people that are truly closed-minded, and I think if we lived for eternity, that they would eventually realize that it wasn't true, and they would have time to, do something productive to their understanding of productive. But unfortunately, we live like 80 years. So a lot of people don't have the lifetime to figure that out and not waste their life. So I'm passionate about helping people find their own way to whatever conclusion that they need to.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, essentially, yes. To answer your question, yeah, that is, your paraphrasing of what I said was accurate.
I was really curious about just the motivations for life and like why people are the way they are and why they do what they do and don't do what they don't do. Like I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like reveal this to me, show this to me. I set my intention on that. And the word that I saw, or the word that I heard was, Alan, every fear on planet Earth, every fearful action, every fearful whatever is all related back to the fear of death. And I was like, that's an interesting thought. Let me cross evaluate. Let me look at examples.
We'll try to falsify it.
Yeah, let's try to falsify that. I was like, why would the thought was again, or rather, let's put it this way: the hypothesis was that every act that is based with fear, some level of fearful intent, is related back to the fear of death. I was like, interesting, and I was like, I didn't.
Let's first ask the question, Alan: is this falsifiable? Like, what would you accept as evidence that would falsify
It'd
it?
be insanely difficult to falsify because we're talking about intention. We're talking about stuff that science. I don't believe. I don't believe science has the ability to measure the things necessary to measure in order to prove this. So
I'm highly confident that this is our. Okay, I'm highly confident that this has already been tested if you allow it to be falsified. So, cool. So, but also you just admitted that this is in the way you're defining it, it's unfalsifiable.
Yeah. But it's why it's for me. What I'm trying to do is,
And for that reason alone, it's meaningless. The conversation's over. There's nothing to talk about. If it's unfalsifiable, it's done. The end.
But
Move on.
no, pull out.
Yep.
Hang on.
Then allow it to be falsified. Allow not saying that the idea has to be falsified, but allow it to be falsifiable. By what metric would you accept it to be falsified if it was indeed incorrect? Because if you give a metric, then we can show that it's true. If you don't give a metric, then it's unfalsifiable, and it's no different from not being true in the first place. So
I'm totally open to it being falsified. I'm not open to that.
Okay, so we need to answer a question. This is a requirement for it to be a hypothesis. If you don't have falsifiability, it's not a hypothesis. It's just fucking idea. That's meaningless.
Okay. Well, then let's say it's a meaningless idea then.
Okay, then I don't care. But if you want to carry on, go ahead.
I do, because I genuinely don't know how one would test this.
I have an idea.
Okay, how would one test this?
Okay, so if we're saying that every idea of fear goes back to in some way death, okay, how you would falsify it is simply think of one example where there is fear that doesn't have to do with death. That would falsify it. This is the scientific method where we
literally like. So
go ahead.
I guess for me, how you could test it is to look at the regions of the brain that are responsible for the experience of or the perception of fear, and see if, first and foremost, it would be this fear of one thing versus fear of another thing. Does it fire up different parts of the brain? If the answer is no, if it all lights up the same place, to me that would be a supportive piece of evidence. That if fear looks the same every time it lights up in the brain, it just all that changes is the amplitude. That to me would be super supportive of the hypothesis.
So
proving it, but super supportive.
So in the scientific method, we don't look for evidence for, we look for evidence against.
Evidence against. Yeah. So then the evidence.
So and if we cannot find any evidence against for it, and all the evidence points to the hypothesis being true while it retaining its falsifiability, then you can say, okay, so far this is consistent beyond reasonable doubt. It is the opposite of science to only look for what would support it and not try to falsify it. That is the opposite of science. That's confirmation bias, the logical fallacy we're going to get to. So, one example that I would think of is so first, to create an analogy, this is important because I want to talk about ad hoc reasoning. Where let's say I were to say same thing, but it all comes down to food. That fear is I don't know. Let's redefine this and say that it comes down to fear is anything that doesn't get your food. And I'll say, okay, well, what if my fear is being alone? Well, if you're alone, then you can't get you don't have a society, right? If you're all alone, it's going to be hard for you to get food. It's not impossible, but it's a lot harder. Therefore, it supports my hypothesis. Like, no, this is ad hoc reasoning where your brain is essentially making up an exception for something that's unwarranted. You're trying to redefine it into an unfalsifiable narrative. It's a fallacy. So the example that I would give that would falsify the narrative, and if what you care about is truth, you would be able to let go of this hypothesis if I could falsify it instead of being emotionally attached to it, which I feel like you kind of are right now, a little bit. And my example is being alone. I used to, maybe not as much anymore, but I think I still have to some degree. I'm fearful of not having a like a long relationship. I would like to be married one day and like have a family. And not doing that. If I was all by myself, living my life, doing the best I can, I guess I will carry on. And that would suck. But I'm in fear of that happening versus I would very much prefer to have a family. Either scenario does not impede on my life one way or the other. Without adding in ad hoc reasoning, just like that is the statement. It does, yeah. It is a example of fear that does not impede on my living. And I can have a better definition of fear. If you're open to the idea, but I think that the one that you proposed is I have falsified it.
So, question is, if you can so are you saying that if you can falsify something once, it makes the hypothesis completely null?
Yep, just once. That's all it takes.
But there's no hypothesis that has proven to work 100% of the time.
That's all hypotheses, yes. Always.
Which means
if they don't, then they fall apart. Then they are no longer their hypothesis. It's falsified. It's done.
But it's like if you go and you have a hypothesis and it's consistent 98% of the time, but you falsify it once.
Yep, it's done.
Then
make a new one. Yeah, that's how science works. It's hard cut. There's no emotion to I like the hypothesis, I want to keep it going. No. If it doesn't work, it's done. The end. Move on. Learn something new. Like it really in science, there's no room for bullshit. There's absolutely no appeal to emotion in regards to ideas. If the idea doesn't work 100% of the time, get the fuck out.
If there's no idea that would work 100% of the time.
All theories in science do. All of them. And all hypotheses do. Gravity, evolution, atomic theory. Okay, atomic theory, go. By the way, you and I don't have the education to attempt to falsify this, so I don't think you or I could attempt to do this, but atomic theory. You're not gonna do it.
Okay. I hear you, and
bro, we do. All right, let's go with evolution. That's a little bit more. We can talk about that one. Evolution, go.
Oh, I get it. I understand. I understand what you're saying. The thing I think for me that is like the part that this is bumping up against is at one point you didn't know what evolution was. If somebody has said, "Hey, I think that over time we have slowly but surely developed traits through mutation, and the traits that were more favorable stayed, and the traits that were not left, whether it was through sexual selection or actual ability." I believe that's how we become the way that we are, and I believe that
if someone had said to that person, nope, that's not true, because no evidence for it, here's how I can falsify it through one thing, and that person never tried, then we wouldn't have evolution. So I hear what you're saying, but there's a to me there's
Alan,
like
Alan, that's exactly what they did. They tried to falsify it, and every single time they did, they failed. It is never once, not a single example ever falsified it.
but if like you're not even, the thing is like, as we're talking about this, you have jumped in before I could get to the point of the hype. Like, yes,
Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but it was a mischaracterization of how we discovered evolution.
got it. So for me, let me be more specific with my language so that I can hopefully articulate this more effectively.
Okay.
When I say death, what I mean is and it's difficult for me to articulate this because what I'm referring to is through the last 10 years of working with people and doing everything I can to utilize speech, emotion, examples to help them to take action, but also to understand what has them to stop taking action that otherwise would be, in my mind, the most logical and best action for them to take, why they continue to go the other way. It's been a 10-year obsession to try to figure this out. So in that sense, what I'm trying to articulate to you in this moment is that perhaps my language won't be quite actually, like, frankly, it may not actually be good enough to be able to articulate what I'm trying to say. But there is something that through trial and error of 10 years, I'm like, damn, there is a trend line here, and I'm trying my best to describe it to you. Does that make sense?
Good. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing that I have noticed is that for whatever reason, is that people, the reason they don't do things that would otherwise make their life adventurous and for a joint value system that you and I have, like squeeze the juice out of life, like really go for it, is usually for some way, shape, or form, it's because of fear. And that fear, they're afraid they'll run out of money, or they're afraid that they're not going to have security for their kids, or there's always fear. And I think to myself, whenever that happens, I'm like, kid, there are too many variables there. Human beings are not that complex. We're complex, but we're not that complex. Like, you can't have, as an example, you can't have Tony Robbins speak in front of 15,000 fucking people and literally like say things that apply to 95% of the room if we were so irreversibly complex. That's just not accurate. So it's like the thing that's an obsession of mine is, what are the commonalities? What are the simple things, the simple truths? And so even for something simple, like example, like quitting my job and starting my own company. If you understand committed action, vision, resourcefulness, all that shit, like, it's like, yeah, do the thing, find a way, you'll figure it out. Live in a van if you have to. Who gives a fuck? But someone, for some reason, despite all that information, they will choose, no, I'm not going to do that. There's no way. And for me, when I reflect on people's actions, their reasoning for why they do what they don't do, why they do what they do, or don't do what they don't do, or even reflecting on my own individual experience, fear itself is like this. It's a sensation, or it's an experience that at the end of the day, at the crossroad of either do it or don't do it, there's a sensation that fear creates that causes someone to either don't do it or do it. It's that feeling, that sensation. There's the chemical expression of fear. Because
I have nothing against what you said so far.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I have a hypothesis of where fear comes from, and I'm pretty sure this is both falsifiable and also unfalsified.
I mean, I think this is a super productive conversation.
Great.
So in that sense,
you ready? Or no?
Yeah,
oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I'm trying to get to the whole
Go ahead.
point.
Okay.
But I want to make sure that each piece is tight enough here.
Okay.
So that sensation of fear. So I ask myself, okay, that singular sensation of fear, what program is that? Like, what that sensation that people feel, what feeling is going to be singularly consistent across the board? Because again, it's just like any other emotion. It's like it'd be like joy or excitement, but it's fear in particular. And then you think, okay, well, biologically, what is one single, like, fear of what? It's not just fear of fear. It's not just fear in general. What would be a biological um, thing that would be installed that is consistent across every living organism that would make sense to have a fearful trigger for? No food? Well, if you have no food, then what happens? Well, then you die. No water? If you have no water, then what happens? You die. No sex? If you have no sex, then you have no recreation, then your line dies. No legacy. It dies. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Consistently, or even if you're alone. If you're alone, humans historically, we didn't evolve and become as big as we are because we're really good on our own. You put one man versus one bear, the bear is going to win. But if you put even just two men versus one bear, there is the chance of survival of that one man goes up exponentially, or those two men exponentially, just because there are two. We socially have incredible utility, whereas alone we're actually pretty frail. And so it's like, okay, maybe perhaps that's possible as well. So the thought is that the fear, if you trace it back, it's like, could it be that at the most basic level, fear is simply just the fear of death in various contexts? That's like the first piece. And so with that piece, I began to look at, or the opposite was shown to me in this journey, which was, Alan, what is the opposite of death? The opposite of death is life, but not just life. And this will sound religious, I promise it's not. Eternal life. What is eternal life? In all the context that I've ever heard eternal life before, to me, eternal life meant not dying. But I was like, no, that's not the opposite of death. The opposite of something is not the null of it. The opposite is the other side. And it was like, Alan, eternal life is not dying. Eternal life is literally like life force, like energy. And you don't like the word energy. Fuck, how would I put this? I don't know how to describe this in a way that is super scientific, so bear with me. But like, eternal life meaning vitality, meaning energized, meaning passionate, excited, joyful all the time, being full of creationary energy, such that we are. I'm stumbling because I keep using the word energy and you don't like it. I don't know the right way to define it. But anyway, just being full of life.
Are we
If you
are we coming close to the conclusion?
yes.
Okay.
Final piece of evidence or example is this: Tony Robbins, when he goes on stage, the man burns literally, and they hooked up machines to him to test his body. He burns 10,000 calories every time he goes on stage for one of his events. 10,000 calories. If you watch his hands while he's talking, he doesn't have Parkinson's. If you watch his hands are vibrating slightly whenever he speaks.
Mm-hmm.
There is a certain amount of intensity, passion, vitality that courses through him that allows him to do what he does. And so for me, as I looked back at this, and I began to just say, okay, well, let's just like test this out and see how this looks. Depth, life. Why would people then? You would think that if people thought they were going to die, you would think that they would just, make the most out of their life. But in my experience with people, those who believe they're going to die, in my experience of them, typically throw their lives away rather than make the most of it. Typically. And this is of my experience in working with people and observing.
Mm-hmm.
If they think they're going to die, for some reason, they do things like drink too much. Because the logic is that, well, it's all going to be over anyway. Or they don't care about how they speak, or they don't care about other people. They kind of just throw away their interactions because what's the point? However, people who I've witnessed who are not just religious, like, just gobbling up religious ideology, but they are shooting for vitality at the highest level, peak metabolic rate, peak expression, a peak thing, like really shooting for being unlimited in their lifetime. Those people seem to not only do more with their life, they seem to maximize their life. So I wanted to share this with you because you were like, I think that if people understand they're going to die, they'll do more. I actually believe that it's possible that actually if people understand they're going to die, they have
Some
to be able.
people. I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, but I think as a trend line, my hypothesis is that if you were to present a group of people with the truth, if somehow if we could measure them accepting the truth that they are going to die, like it's lodged in their system. I don't know how to describe that, but they accept it. They take on the belief that the majority of those people, the majority being 51%, if you follow them in a longitudinal study, my hypothesis is that the majority of those people would treat their life more carelessly than before.
Yeah, I would think it would be the opposite. But yeah, I mean that's one of the tests that can be done. Yeah, are you okay with me challenging you on your hypothesis where fear comes from?
100%.
Okay, cool. I have hypothesis that can account for it that retains falsifiability. So I'm being charitable by calling your idea of where fear comes from hypothesis, because it doesn't have falsifiability the way that you defined it, and that makes it no hypothesis. It's now just philosophy. So, as far as fear goes, fear is the opposite of what your desires are. If you have a desire for anything to happen, and it seems that things are going against that, you are fearful of that thing. So, for example, a major falsifiability to the original notion is suicide bombers or kamikazes are very motivated to die for their religion. And if you allowed the hypothesis to be falsifiable, then that would falsify it. But their desire is to support the religion. And so they are in fear of not accomplishing that goal. Most of our desires are based by survival, not of necessarily the individual, but the population as a whole. And this comes from evolution. We've seen that there are lots of animals that will sacrifice their own lives if it means the queen stays alive. And yeah, so this is where a lot of aspects within our own species come from that have seemed to be elusive. There is now a working hypothesis for where quote unquote gay people come from, and it's called the gay uncle hypothesis, where that it is better for a society that some people don't reproduce so they can actually be around to take care of the family, like a gay uncle, and that supports the family more than having just everybody be straight. And yeah, so that's the gay uncle hypothesis of where gay people come from. Why is it so prevalent in society? When on the surface, like, well, they don't reproduce. How would that be successful? Well, it's not successful to the individual, but it is successful to society. And I also think this is why autistic people exist. If it weren't for someone like me being as ridiculously particular as I am, then there may be no one in society that is that ridiculously particular about anything and calling out the bullshit. Right? So the things that we've learned is that the things that peripherally in society benefit the survival of the society, and they're not always good, but that is how we evolved. That makes sense for where ambitions come from, and then also the antithesis of that would be fear. So in relation to the suicide bombers or the kamikaze people, they have been illogically convinced that that is what they need to do to benefit their survival, or sometimes logically convinced. If yeah, let's say that you were in Japan World War II, and they were. I know that this is illogical convincing, but let's just say that this was the truth. That if Japan didn't win, then the United States would take over the world, and then everyone would die, including every Japanese person. Right? If that were the case, then it would be reasonable for someone to sacrifice their life for their country to keep the peace, right? So that is if that were the scenario, then that would be a reasonable conclusion to kill yourself. It's not crazy, but that is how that's what desires and fears are all about. So I would say for the most part, the idea of fear is in some relation to death warranted, but if we are allowing it to be falsifiable, then we need to be more specific. And I think I summarized it as much as I could without getting into.
You did great.
Okay.
I love the perspective. The counter that I was that you're
So one, Ithaca, I 100% first love the perspective you brought in, and I agree with it. The full stop. And
Cool.
If in their current situation, they do not have in their awareness the presence of an other, and that happens all the fucking time, then that scenario wouldn't work. In that scenario, most of us.
I'm sorry. What do you mean by other? I don't know. What you're talking about when you say other.
A human, a group. Like if someone is operating from the construct that they are alone in this world, that they don't belong to a group, they don't belong to a country, they don't belong to a whatever. There are plenty of people in the U.S.
They typically don't survive very long. Yeah, I mean the thing is, I hate to say natural, but our natural state is not being by ourselves. We evolved to be with other people. So typically in the cases of where, because we've done studies of what happens to humans if you have no human interaction, and now these are considered very barbaric. But back, over 100 years ago, they would test to see like what would happen if you gave a human baby, everything it needs except for human interaction. The baby just dies.
Yeah,
it has no will to live.
Yes.
So that's what happens. And even then it still supports life, because the energy that would have gone into that baby now is able to replenish others that it could have gone to. So the same thing happens when it's kind of the reason that we die. Like when we get old, why don't we just live forever? Well, because we need to die to save resources for new generations. And there's even a lot of people who are older that aren't afraid of death. They're ready to go, and some beg to go because they feel like their purpose is done, and they want to move on, and they feel like they're stealing resources from other people by staying alive. So yeah, it's not all just about the individual's death. It's more about the population. If that's how we're defining it, then sure. But again, any idea must be falsifiable if it is to have any merit. If it doesn't have falsifiability, it's meaningless.
Okay, that now you're confusing me on that part. So you said an idea must be falsifiable in order for it to have any meaning.
I'm going to define meaning because I don't want to equivocate meaning.
Yeah.
Meaning as in additional information that we can learn from the thing that is that we can verify to be factual. So not just like, oh, that makes me feel good, it gives me meaning. I don't mean that. Because you can get that from a bunch of lies. That's fine. But now I'm talking about when I say meaning. I mean in practical information that we can actually learn things from. That's what I mean by meaning.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely some education I get to have from you in this situation because I'm missing something. So the thing I'm stuck on is you said it must be falsifiable to have meaning. However, when you
in science, if it's not falsifiable, it's not science. It has no merit because you can be convinced of anything that's unfalsifiable. Literally anything.
So can you falsify gravity?
Yes.
But you said there's no evidence to falsify gravity.
Falsifiable means that there is a hypothetical scenario that we could find that would prove that gravity is false. That's what falsifiability means. It doesn't mean that there is a thing that can falsify it. It means that it is hypothetically able to be falsified, but still hasn't yet.
Got it. So, okay. So to reflect back, so I can just give myself verbal processing and understanding is
Okay.
Something. Essentially, what you're saying is that if something is presented without the usage of any logical fallacies, it
must also have false. Yeah, it must also have falsifiability. Sorry. Go ahead.
You're good. It's for me, it's like a two-part thing. It's like part one is something, in order for something to be able to qualify as put up to be a hypothesis, it needs to be presented without logical fallacies and equivocation and all that stuff. It must be, the words must be.
Well, yeah, equivocation is a fallacy. Yeah. So it must be if it has no logical fallacies but is unfalsifiable, then it's philosophy. If it has no logical fallacies and it is falsifiable, then it's science.
And it's science. Got it. So it's like it has to have those two things. What you're saying is that. Got it. So it has to have no logical fallacies, which then makes it false. Well, yeah, if it has no logical fallacies, then it should every time be falsifiable.
Not necessarily. Last Thursdayism is has no logical fallacies, but it's unfalsifiable.
Oh, okay. Got it. So understood. This now makes sense to me. So what's important to understand when one is making a hypothesis and declaring that this is a hypothesis, it must eliminate the usage of logical fallacies and
I'm going to give you a word. I'm going to give you a word instead of saying not having logical fallacies. You could say isn't fallacious.
Isn't fallacious.
Is not fallacious. Yeah, isn't fallacious.
Got it. I'm gonna for now until I have a stronger, more internalized understanding of logical fallacies and fallaciousness. I'm gonna use logical fallacies over fallaciousness for the time being.
That's fine.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Got it. So that helps me a ton. So what I'm hearing is, because I really do, I have strong belief in the concept of the idea that I just shared with you. In order for this to be hypothesis and for us to have legitimate like scientific discussion around, I
Mhm.
need to essentially refine this idea down to something that is precise enough, measurable enough, falsifiable, and does not use logical fallacies in order for us to have that conversation in the scientific fashion. Is that correct?
Perfect. Yeah. Then we could talk all day.
Oh,
Yeah.
fucking
Then we can go. Then that's how we learn things. That's how we move forward in life. But if it doesn't have,
Fucking
if
go.
it's not falsifiable, we're done. There's literally nothing to talk about.
Well, I would. So here, may I offer up a
In the scientific way, there's nothing to
Yes,
talk
may-
about.
May I offer up a social perspective
Sure.
on what you just said?
Oh, yeah, I understand that's not popular socially, but that's how science works. But yeah, go ahead.
I know. For me, what would be supportive, rather than saying, and when I say supportive, I mean supportive of. Well, change the word supportive. What would be what I would deem as more constructive
Okay.
would be, instead of saying nope, it's done. What would be more constructive would be if you were to respond, instead of by saying nope, it's done, not talking about it, I'm finished. What would be more constructive would be, hey, it sounds like there are a couple things in what you're calling your hypotheses that are not exact enough, not specific enough, or it's not falsifiable.
Yeah.
How would you
For sure.
define? Can you create a more clear definition around XYZ thing, so we can make it a hypothesis? That to me would be super supportive, because rather than because for me, like, I definitely would consider myself more emotionally oriented. It's
Mhm.
like for me, when I hear someone I'm having a I'm in a sense right now. Now we're gonna go total like emotional. I think this is super good. I think it's maybe helpful for you. Is for me, when I'm sharing an idea that I've come up with that happened in a moment for me that I've had time to stew on and sit on, there is emotional attachment to the idea that I've created, enough so that I'm willing to continue to hunt down evidence, or to continue to like have conversation, figure it out, etc. So it's like there's a part of me that in some way, shape, or form identifies with what I'm sharing with you. And so
Mhm.
to hear someone who, specifically a friend, to hear a friend I'm communicating with, where I'm sharing something that is near and dear to my heart, that matters to me, and for that friend to go, no, done, don't want to hear it because it's not falsifiable. There's a part of me that I kind of hurts.
For
Versus,
sure.
if the friend instead goes, hey, there's some bits I like where you're going with this, and there are parts of it that are making it like not functional in the world of science. Can we can we further define a few things so we can make this scientific? Then it's like, oh shit, yeah, 100%. Then all of a sudden I'm like, he's not completely giving me the like, close the book, done, shut the fuck off, you're wrong. He's saying, I like where you're going. Let's see if we can make something out of this. And if we can't, then we can't. But if we can, let's try to do it together. That to me feels that feels more constructive and socially, more socially constructive than to just shut something down.
I apologize for doing that, because in outside of this our calls, I try to do that, where I try to
Got
get
it.
more information on that, because that's the nice way to do it. When you because if you just shut things down, then people think like you're just giving them the middle finger, and but that's it's like, it's almost like scientists speak a different language, where they are excited to be proving wrong rather than everyone else who just wants to like have their ideas be proven right.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I thought in our calls, we've already established that, and so I thought it was okay to like use scientific language to poke at it, because in scientific circles, there is zero room for bullshit, and if something's unfalsifiable, it really is like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah, it's
I
not
think
entertaining.
I think I'm
So I
on my
apologize.
way to being able. No, it's okay. It's okay. I forgive you. I think I'm on my way to being able to get to that place with you. It's that
Yeah,
you're
we'll
the
take time.
you're the
I thought we were already there. I apologize.
no, it's okay. I think it'll take some time because it's like because what's now coming up as a result of this conversation is now like another level to my desire of wanting to do research, wanting to search for evidence, wanting to be more specific, more exact. And so it's like I'm in like almost like the beginner stages, like the apprentice stages where I'm a little more sensitive, I'm a little bit less like adept in this type of conversation, but like give this 6 months or something, and all of a sudden it's like you tell me bullshit. I'm like, ooh,
why?
and then we go into it more.
Yeah, just
A thought.
Yeah. One of the first things is detach all emotional connection to any idea. The idea is on its own, and if something's untrue, what I would recommend, because of what I do, I have intense emotional disgust for things that are untrue. And I'm not attached to the idea, I'm attached to truth versus untruth. So if because I had a hypothesis once, it was called the A113 theory, where all these amazing directors of these films that were originally taught from Walt Disney and passed on would make the best movies. And so I feel like I told you this a long time ago, like over a decade ago. I had a collection of movies from all these amazing directors. And the hypothesis was as long as somebody works on a movie with this director, this trait of inheriting a perfect storyline, of being able to tell one, carries on. And so the falsifiability notion would be that they could not make a bad movie. What I realized I was doing was actually confirmation bias, because I was not allowing any of them to be falsified, because I was so emotionally attached to that idea being true that I just dismissed Home on the Range being a good movie, because it must be in order for this to work. And it's objectively not. It's a bad movie. And so, like, I was not being scientific. I was being confirmation biased. And now I know, yeah, that was a low ball. And that's okay. But yeah, that was the switch in my emotional connection. Anyways, are you ready to hop into more fucking fallacies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Alan, what are your thoughts on appeal to rigor?
Appeal to rigor. My thoughts on appeal to rigor. I'd say, let me like pour this water. Hang on. I'll tell you my thoughts on appeal to rigor.
Read again if you forgot. It's been a while. Alan and I got trapped in a conversation for like 2 hours, and now we're finally getting back to it. So
It's very normal between the two of us. Okay, so yeah, appeal to rigor. I'll just review it. Appeal to rigor is the opposite of appeal to pity. Is an argument often based on machismo or on manipulating an audience's fear based on mercilessness. Example: I'm a real man, not like those bleeding hearts, and I'll be tough on fill in the name of an enemy or boogeyman of the hour. In academia, this latter fallacy, latter meaning appeal to rigor, applies to politically motivated or elitist calls for academic rigor and rage against university developmental / remedial classes, open admission dumbing down, and grade inflation. So, yeah, appeal to rigor is this to me. Out of all the fallacies that we've covered so far, the appeal to pity and appeal to rigor are the ones that, to me, like my experience of them is they have the most blurred lines between like practical utility and like something one shouldn't do. It's like using the appeal to pity or the appeal to rigor to reinforce an argument. Obviously, like, you don't want to do that. And at the same time, I'm like, well, I'm like, that I could see myself like that. Yeah, it to me, out of all the ones we've gone through so far, Bryce, I think these two are the ones where I'm like, the using them, don't use them. This one seems to be the one I'm having the most difficulty with, like, letting go of, if that makes sense.
I mean, you can use it. It's just unreasonable. It's just fun.
Yeah, I got that. I get that. Curious your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Are you familiar with machismo?
Yeah. Well, put it this way, I'm familiar with machismo in the sense of, like, Latinx culture using it in terms of, like, the man's got it all figured out. It plays on masculine feminine dynamics, and yes, I'm familiar with it in a colloquial social sense.
Okay, no, yeah, that pretty much same for me. I was writing a script for a movie with a partner that was Hispanic, and we really focused on the machismo, and I learned all about it. And yeah, it's for the audience that is not Hispanic at all. This is a thing that is very predominant in Latino culture, to my understanding. That the idea of if someone is a man, uh, they are simply just more correct, just because they are manly, and and whatever. Yeah, and like they are more powerful, and so they get extra special privilege. While that may exist to like a smaller extent in English speaking culture, it's definitely not to this level. So I just wanted to make sure that our audience has never heard of that or experienced that, understands that like in this other culture, this is a big deal. So yeah, that's part of appeal to rigor.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just like to me, it's like,
Because we didn't really grow up with that. You and I, we really didn't grow up with that. The way that I think you've done.
Not as prevalent. Yes, in Latinx cultures, it's way more prevalent, but it's still, I feel
It's like at least 10 times more.
Yeah, totally. But I feel like it's still, and you and I grew up in the same culture, same area. So it's like, we grew up in the Midwest where that hasn't its own set of cultural norms. But I feel like you like, I feel like it's more in Midwest in particular. My experience of it, I'm curious your experience of it, is like the person who speaks with the most like volume of voice and the most like certainty in their tone, which one could characterize as like colloquially masculine, right? Like if you speak that way, if you act that way, then you are more correct.
Right. And it's just there's no merit.
Yeah. It's just like, oh no, he sounds very loud, or she sounds loud, aggressive, and certain, therefore they're right.
Yeah. For sure. All right. I think we're good on that one.